Welcome to The Winning Hand, the podcast about Marvel Champions, one card at a time. My name is Boomguy. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. I am joined today by a very special guest. First of all, as always, my normal co-host, LazyTitan. What's up, man?
Appreciate it. I appreciate you calling me a very special guest. Thanks for that.
Yep. Also, I have another special guest in that line of thinking. It's Caleb Grace, formerly from Marvel Champions, but still from Fantasy Flight Games. How are you, Caleb?
Doing well, thank you.
Yeah. We don't have a card of the day today, so a slightly different episode. So if you came here for one card at a time, I'm sorry, you'll have to wait for next episode. This one is an interview with Caleb. We're just going to kind of talk through some stuff, the new upcoming release, Civil War. So we want to pick the brain of the man who masterminded all of it. So we're going to talk through a bunch of that stuff and other things that come up along the way. So Caleb, are you ready to talk about your final Marvel Champions gift to the community?
Yeah, let's do it.
First, before we talk about that, actually, I want to ask you other questions. Do you play other board and card games? Are you like an all-around card gamer, board gamer?
Yeah, I like to think so. I did learn since starting at Fantasy Flight Games that I'm not as serious or hardcore as most of my coworkers. I have a short, fun anecdote about that. We had turned out that one of my coworkers is married to one of my wife's oldest friends, and like we didn't realize that till we all met up at like an office party. And they were like, "Oh my gosh, we know you." And so we had them over for dinner after that. And so I'm showing my coworker kind of like my closet where I keep all the games, because I got kids, so I can't just leave them out, And
Good move.
so the ladies are upstairs, they're having coffee and catching up, and I'm showing my buddy around, and I show him the game closet, and I'm thinking, hey, this is taking me a while to build this collection. I got stuff from my childhood, stuff since I started at the studio. And he looks at me and kind of seriously says, "You cannot let my wife see this." And I'm thinking, oh, it's because it's so impressive. And he says, "I can't let her know you can survive on this few board games." And so I was like, then I started watching all these podcasts. It's like the obligatory, IKEA shelf full of board games. And like, yeah, I don't have that many, but I do like to play a lot of different games.
Do you have any particular favorites or one that you play a lot that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah, so I like Twilight Imperium quite a bit. I don't play it too often because it takes a whole day. It's a bit exhausting, but I do enjoy that. I also really like Star Wars Outer Rim. I think that's a fun one because it's less aggressive than like TI, where I don't have to just destroy you in order to win. Like we can both do pretty well, and it's more of a race. We can even work together at times. Non-FFG product, there's a Star Trek game from WizKids. It's pretty old now, but I got it when it first came out. It was Star Trek Fleet Captains. That's, if you're a Star Trek fan, that's a really fun game. And I play that with my kids, and they love it, flying ships around the map and exploring and battling. So I tend to be drawn to strategy games, mostly. Not a lot of spoons or hearts or stuff for me. To each their own. I'm happy for those that enjoy them.
Yeah, space games.
I do enjoy science fiction. That's true. All of those were sci-fi. I do like fantasy quite a bit. I'm trying to find games that I can play with my family. So recently, we got into the Chronicles of Avel, which it's a little bit like, baby's first D&D. I don't mean that derogatory for anyone, by the way. I am a genuine fan of the game. In fact, we brought it with us on our summer vacation this year, and it was kind of a favorite memory for everybody that we set it up in the cabin at the table, and we played through a couple of sessions, and it was like a big high five all around between me and my wife, my daughter, and my son when we defeated the monster and saved the castle. So that was cool.
Okay. So you'd recommend those to others as well? Those are like ones staples of yours, you think?
Yeah, it's hard to recommend games because everyone's tastes are so different, right? So for people with similar tastes as me who like, high fantasy, sci-fi, adventure, strategy, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. How often do you play your own games, Caleb?
Weekly.
I mean, not at work.
Also weekly, at least for a long time. So like I work on the Star Wars deck building game now, right? And that started out as like a passion project. So for a long time, it was just me and my buddy, and we would meet like every Saturday at 10 a.m. just to get together and and play for a couple hours. And for years, it was like, boy, wouldn't it be great if this actually got made into a game? I would love to see art on these cards or real graphic design, you know? But that was kind of a sign that we had something special, is that my friend is like texting me from work going, I know I'm supposed to get work done, but I can't think about, I want to play that game again.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
the art and graphic design in that game is actually really, really incredible as well. I know
Thank you.
the game is also really fun, but the art is great.
Well, we were fortunate enough to work with Lucasfilm for like 10 years already by the time I pitched the game. So we had quite the catalog of great art to choose from. And we have like all the best graphic designers in the industry, you know, in studio. So the graphic design is always going to be good because we have like Lawrence Smith and Chris Hosh and just all these brilliant people.
Awesome. We're going to touch on that game a little bit later. I think we're going to circle back to Star Wars deck building because there's some things I want to ask you about that. Let's kind of press into the Marvel Champions part of this, which is what most people are here for. You're the lead designer of the final wave of your time with Marvel Champions, the Civil War wave, which was delayed but is coming out soon. What was it like? What was the experience like working on your last expansion? And did you know it was your last one going into it?
Yeah. That kind of dovetails nicely talking about the Star Wars deck building game, because it was like we finally decided as a studio that we wanted to turn the deck builder into a full-on game line. And I lobbied real hard to say, hey, you know, that was kind of my baby. I'd really like to be the one to continue that on. And so we started looking for like an off-ramp where I could transition from Marvel Champions onto the deck builder. And that meant, you know, bringing new people onto the team and getting them up to speed so that it was, you know, a smooth transition, right? That nothing got dropped in between. So, you know, we onboarded Frank pretty early, and he was really involved with the Civil War playtest, and he designed a couple heroes in the wave who I think they haven't even been announced yet, but there's some really exciting stuff coming from. Yeah, so we kind of had a plan in place like quite a while in advance of that set. And the Civil War thing like itself was something that we've been kicking around for a long time too. That was like an idea we had, I think, as soon as we started working on the game, honestly, like going all the way back to the beginning when it was just me and Nate and Michael Boggs. We thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool at some point, you know, to do a Civil War expansion where we find a way that the heroes can battle each other. And it was actually me and Boggs who first sat down and like kind of went back and forth about what would it actually look like. And I think Boggs even put together a pretty comprehensive document of like, here's why you can't actually just do player versus player, like straight head to head. Like we can't do like Hawkeye versus Black Widow, like because he was just going through and like all these cards that say, you know, remove threat from the scheme or deal damage to the villain, and you know, like just basically made a really comprehensive list of like, here's why the game just doesn't work if you don't have villains and schemes, you know. So yeah, it was something I felt very passionate about, but it was very much a team effort from the beginning.
So to what degree was the way PvP works influenced by some Lord of the Rings content that came out? And I think there was those events, and there's some that are head to head that feels similar to this.
Mm-hmm.
So like, was that influenced, or was it a separate idea?
No, absolutely. We took a lot of what we learned on Lord of the Rings and brought it to Marvel Champions. I think we've covered other things on this show previously about packaging and product types, and you know, things like side schemes became you know, player side schemes, right? Or side quests in Lord of the Rings, rather. That's what I meant to say. So yeah, we definitely took a lot of ideas and brought them here. And when we decided we want to do player versus player, it was kind of always like I felt this confidence of, well, I did it for Lord of the Rings, so I know I can do it for Champions. Yeah, I definitely learned some lessons from that. I think the biggest one, ironically, was just like how to pitch the product, because that Lord of the Rings thing that we did was something I was very proud of and very excited about. It, to this day, is still one of my favorite ways to play the game, because it's always a surprise, like what's in the deck. Because especially as the designer, but even as a player who's played through stuff a few times, you start to know everything that's in the encounter deck. And so you can start to plan for it and go, well, if we draw this encounter, we'll be okay. If we draw that one, we could be screwed. So here's what we'll do to hedge our bets. And it takes some of the tension out once you realize that you can accurately predict, you know, the different outcomes. Whereas if your opponent builds a scenario for you, you have no idea what they put in there. And then it makes every reveal that much more exciting. So that tension is fresh every time. And then you add this very subtle pressure of we're in a race now. And I was talking about how we market it, how we pitch it. It was the big lesson I learned, because people, Lord of the Rings players, they didn't really like the PvP too much. They liked making their own scenarios, which, I thought that was cool. I'm like, well, at least it's not a total bust. Like, people are having fun making their own scenarios, choosing their own quest stages and encounters, and then they're inviting their friends to come play cooperatively. And like, that's great. But I was always a little disappointed people didn't want to try the PvP a little more, because I love that very subtle pressure that it adds when you're in a race with your opponent, because it forces you to do things you wouldn't normally do. Like, if I advance to the next stage, I'm going to have to reveal more encounter cards, and I'm all tapped out, and one bad card, and that could be the end. But if I don't go, my opponent might get a whole turn ahead of me. And so I love that's a pressure you don't have when you normally play. Normally you can just go, yeah, well, our threat's real low. We might as well just wait another round. No big deal. So that little bit of pressure, it really changes the way that you think. And I've called it kind of quote unquote, like you're playing for real. You're playing for real now, like the pressure's on. And I wanted to capture that, bring it to Marvel Champions, where I don't mean to say play for real as that like you're not playing Marvel Champions properly if you're not doing this, but it is something I think everyone deserves to experience.
Yeah.
Is this feeling.
I think it's just nice that it has a very thematic hook too, right? The Civil War series or set or I don't know, adventure, whatever
Huge
you
event
call it.
in comics and
Yeah,
movies.
event. It was a big thing, and they made a huge movie out of it. So I think it has a theme in the way Lord of the Rings maybe didn't quite have a hook to grab people, right? Like Frodo never fights Legolas, or frankly speaks to him in the movies, but that's a different context. It's it has a nice hook, and I think I've seen people online since the very beginning when the game came out talking about, do you think they'll ever do X, Y, or Z? And one of the things they always ask is, will they do PvP? Will they do Civil War and we can fight each other?
Yeah.
And I was always of the opinion that there's no way. Like, I just don't think they're going to do it. This is a cooperative game. Like, don't get your hopes up, whatever. But, Boomguy was wrong. You did it.
First time.
Yeah, first time. We'll quickly forget. We'll get my 100% record back. So when you had this idea for the PvP module and you started fleshing it out, like, how is testing and development for a PvP product different than it is for a standard Marvel Champions product?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question, because it really was different. By the time we got to Civil War, geez, how many boxes had I done by that time already? About a half dozen, it felt like, and it just really had it down at that point. There's kind of a formula to it. You get a good feel for like, I need this many scenarios and this many modular sets, and here's how each scenario in the box will be different from each other, and here's how they'll be unique from all the other ones. And there's less focus on all the encounter sets need to feel balanced and fair, and more about just what feels right for this scenario. But for Civil War, completely different, because there are no like recommended modular sets. It's completely sandbox, like put whatever sets you want with whatever leader and main schemes you want. And because we're encouraging people to try it competitively, then they need to be fairly well balanced against each other, so that you're not just making 4 scenarios, you're creating an entire meta. You're an entire card pool that you don't want the product to come out, hit the streets, and then immediately everyone's like, these are the best encounter sets if you're playing competitively, like you have to use these encounter sets. People will say this stuff anyway, but
Of course.
I just like wanted to make sure that as designers and playtesters, we were like really doing our due diligence to try all the different combinations and see, if we could find something that was just clearly the best. And I'm really happy to say, like, we did a very thorough job, and I don't believe anything emerged as just like, this is clearly the runaway hit. So yeah, it was very different in that sense, that we had to kind of balance test everything, and also trying to get different heroes in the mix too, different hero leader combinations, and seeing what opened up. And so I'm really grateful to our testers, because they love just throwing themselves into that stuff. And I would just get so many reports, I could hardly keep up with them all. And so there was a lot I didn't even respond to. I just go, okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. That's good to know. because they'd be like, I tried it with this hero and I tried it with that hero, and that was great. We even organized a tournament because a lot of our playtesters they come to Minnesota during the Con of Heroes event. They start a thread going, hey, who else is going to be in town? Would you like to meet up? Should we do some in-person playtesting? It's kind of a special thing. It's really turned into like an annual event now. And so for Civil War, I thought, it'd be great because there's going to be like 20 of us here. Like, let's have a actual honest to goodness tournament where we encourage everyone to like build for it ahead of time, put some thought, make the most busted competitive deck that you can, and we'll see how it goes. We ended up having 22 people compete, and out of 22 players, there was like 22 different strategies. It was really cool to see. Like, there was not a lot of overlap for like what heroes were picked and what leaders and what main schemes and what mod sets. Like, there was a lot of variety, a lot of really creative approaches. I saw somebody made like a deck around Iron Man because I think we spoiled his card that makes him scheme, right? Each leader has like player cards you can unlock. And their deck was all about like trying to cycle through their deck so they could play that card over and over again to try to get their Iron Man leader to cause their opponents to threat out. So like that was one strategy that I saw that was really cool. And that was just one example of many. So I am genuinely excited for people to get this and discover all this for themselves.
How did you guys go ahead?
Sorry. Were you guys, because you talked about how Lord of the Rings, the hook kind of wasn't there, and sometimes people were a little negative on it. Or you guys, obviously you took that into consideration. Were you guys worried that this would maybe not be like a favor of the community, or was it just such a like perfect brainchild that you guys were like, we got to go through with it anyway?
Well, we all know everything I do is perfect, and so there's never been any negative. I'm just kidding. I can't even finish this sentence.
We heard it here, folks.
No, of course there's going to be people who are not interested in competitive mode, and they don't have to be. That's really okay. So we made sure, like I said, lesson learned from Lord of the Rings was make it a customizable expansion first. In other words, if we've done our job right, our audience should be interested in this product and excited for this product, even if they're no interest in playing PvP. Because what this product has that none of our previous products have is the fully customizable scenarios. Like, I don't even think, because no one's seen it yet, no, it's never existed in the game yet, I don't think people understand how radical that is and how much fun it is that you can choose any of these 4 leaders and pair them with any of these, like, I don't know, 8 or 16, I can't remember how many
16
main schemes and mod sets, and you can just mix and match them however you want.
Mix and match main schemes is very cool, and honestly surprised that it hasn't come up before. I'm surprised that hasn't been used.
And it's really fun too. Again, that was like one of the things I was taking notes during that tournament. I was keeping record, trying to just be a little more analytical, gather the data, and it was cool to see who chose which main schemes, because there's some that seem like kind of obvious picks, and I think they've been spoiled. I'm going to go on a limb here, but there's one that like lets you choose a minion for your opponent. So like, you just you find a minion and you deal it out as an encounter card, so that during their first villain phase, they're going to have to reveal this minion. And there's some nasty minions that I think we've already spoiled. I think we showed Taskmaster as one. I think we showed Namor. How cool is it? Namor's in the game now, and he is brutal, and so you can, and we did that on purpose, right? We wanted to have some pretty low hanging fruit that people who aren't like necessarily competitive CCG gamers who do this all the time, would be able to just recognize, like, that goes with that. That's pretty easy to see. But then we had some more like subtle stuff in there too, where I can't remember all of what's been spoiled or not, but it's basically trying to promote other strategies too. Like, this is the one I want to do if I got a big minion. This is the one I want to do if I got a lot of treacheries, or I have maybe not the big minion, but more of like a swarm of minions, So there's different things you're trying to do. Or maybe this is the one I'm trying to do if I'm trying to get a lot of attachments on my villain, right? So really wanted to do different schemes to promote different strategies. And as a result, you can play against the same leader like a dozen different ways, which is really cool to think, because every other scenario, that leader's kind of villain in other scenarios is villains, right? They're kind of doing the same thing every time, as unique as we make them and as fun as they are. That's kind of their shtick, is like Ansabanur is the tri-folding villain. That's his thing. and he's always got the same main scheme that he's paired with. And so, either you like that or you don't. But with these guys, it's like you can change it up, what they're doing.
Yeah. I think I'll just say for the record, Caleb, I think reveal season is over. I think at this point, everything has been revealed, I'm pretty sure, between the articles and the reveals that the content creators had. So there may be single cards out there that weren't revealed, but I'm pretty sure everything has been revealed.
I feel like there's a lot of modular set stuff that hasn't been
Okay.
revealed yet, because I've seen some of the conversations about like people may be worried that there's too much parity between like the resistance side and the registration side, so that maybe they, there's not as much variety as they'd like. And that's there's a little bit, but actually we leaned really hard into what makes the registration different from the resistance, right? So how does it feel different to build decks for one or the other? And I had a lot of fun with that too, kind of going back to LazyTitan's question about what was it like developing this. That was one of my favorite things is answering that question of what makes these two sides different, And we came up with like one gimmick for the registration where, all these heroes are being brandished as outlaws, right? And so we had a card that gave them the, I'm trying to remember what trait it was, where they're like renegades and, shoot, I've lost it, but whatever trait it is, then you have all these other encounter cards that are like, they're going to hit you, but they're going to hit you so much harder if you have that outlaw trait, whatever that trait was, And I thought that to me is really thematic. Like, oh no, I've been, brandished an outlaw, enemy of the state, and now these guys are really coming after me. And thematically, that was fun because it was like shield agents, of course, but then in the comics, it was also some of these heroes for hire who were recruited, right, by the government to help track these heroes down. And so that was fun to do that. And on the resistance side, we did some different things. I really liked how much, Captain America inspires the Avengers to like give it their all. And so you had so many of these heroes ready to like lay down their lives or make the sacrifice play. And so it's not a very complicated gimmick, but it's one I'm especially proud of. These minions, when they're defeated, are dealt to the leader as a boost card. And I just thought that was such a simple thing, but kind of exciting of like, gee, I gotta get rid of Black Panther because he's scheming on me or he's attacking me. But when I do, he's just gonna go to Captain America as a boost card.
That's cool.
And so it's like Captain America gets like all ticked off, like you hurt his friend, now he's gonna hit you back. So yeah, we had a lot of fun. Like the registration doesn't have those cards, and obviously the resistance doesn't have like branding people an outlaw card.
Do you have a favorite hero like from the previous releases to play PvP in? Is there like one that you've just found is super fun for you?
That is such a fun question. I don't know that I have one personally is like my absolute favorite. But I wanted to share this because I had this experience playing with my brother because he's play tested with me as well. So we do get together occasionally so our kids can play. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, if you want, we could try that. He goes, yeah, I actually built a deck for that PvP mode. I want to do that. I said, great. So we sit down to play. He busted out Hulk. And you know what? Hulk kind of rules in this format.
Okay.
He just, because he was like, look, I'm either going to win really fast or I'm going to lose. Because like, I'm just going to tank these hits with 18 hit points and just go for face. And it was like a close thing. I was really impressed. So I do also like how this format can turn some of the, usual suspects kind of like upside down and change the way you look at the game.
How did you pick the leaders that you picked? I think Cap and Iron Man are pretty easy thematic includes just based on the comic event, but the other ones are maybe a little, I mean, I'm less familiar with the comic event, but some of them seem a little different, like out there choices. How'd you pick the ones you did?
That's another great question. So Cap and Iron Man, obviously, they're on the cover. That's what everyone recognizes. After that, yeah, we could have gone a lot of different ways, but one of the things that I was particularly excited to do was to reimagine heroes that have been in the game for a very long time as villains, or what became leaders, right? So I wanted to have the experience of like, what is it like going up against Captain America? How does that feel when he throws the shield at me, right? Or Iron Man does the supersonic punch against me. And so we started with the core set, like who's in the core that we're used to seeing by now that makes a lot of sense thematically to be in this expansion. And then, wanted to make sure that we had people from each side. One of the things that made the story event so compelling is how it did really create a rift between not just team members, but close friends. So Captain Marvel and Spider-Woman in the comic books, they're best friends. They're super tight BFFs, and they chose different sides at different times in these schisms between the Avengers. And so I thought that would be compelling to, not just everyone knows Captain America and Iron Man, but also Spider-Woman and Captain Marvel. I thought that's great. And Captain Marvel especially is a core set hero that I think a lot of people are very familiar with. And she has a really cool play style as a hero. And so I was really excited to represent that as a leader, like her charging up her attacks and getting those extra hits in. And then for Spider-Woman too, it was like trying to figure out, okay, how do we represent her power, right? Because her whole thing as a hero is different aspects, and then she gets boosted up for each different aspect you play. And so we kind of morphed that into like every time you reveal a treachery, she gets powered up. And so that was fun to figure, like with Iron Man, you want a lot of attachments. He wants his suit upgrade just like the hero does. But with Spider-Woman, you want like more treachery. So you're going to build different decks depending on the leader you choose. And then for the Synthezoid SmackDown, She-Hulk was another iconic like core set hero. And Vision actually played a really big role in the comic book, and he was on a different side in the comic book. And then those two have kind of a gnarly history too, from a comic book event called Avengers Disassembled, where She-Hulk loses her mind and like actually tears Vision in half. Yeah. So there's some bad blood there after that. So I thought those would be two unique playstyles as well. As far as She-Hulk just rages out, she can hit like a Mack truck from like turn one, whereas Vision has that, going intangible and becoming harder to hit. And I thought that'd be interesting to try to represent that in this format where maybe if you're playing PvP, your opponent has a little bit of agency to cause Vision to change forms at a time when you don't expect, and it can throw off your plan.
Yeah, I mean, as a self-admitted Vision fan, he's my favorite hero in the game. I was super excited to see him come as a leader. It's not one I would have guessed. If you gave me a list of 6, which ones I think are likely, I don't think I would have put him on there. But it's really, really cool that he's there. I'm super excited.
No, I'm glad.
I don't know if you know or if you can say, but is this the kind of product that we can expect to see more support for, or is this a one-off kind of specific thing? Is this the kind of thing we might just see randomly like scenario packs, or are we gonna?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously I can't say anything about what's unannounced product in the pipeline, but I think it's a good bet that if the product is very well received and there's a lot of positive feedback and demand for more, who's going to say no if people want more of that? So I think time will tell. I'm sorry, I can't be any more specific.
Yeah,
than
that's business right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's good, Caleb. That's business. If it sells well, they will make more of it. Okay, like shifting as you're moving away from Marvel Champions. When you reflect on your time with Marvel Champions, what's the one thing or the one product that you're most proud of having made?
Well, I'm tempted to say Civil War because it's the newest one that's coming up, and I really am. Like I said, it was a very different process that required a totally different approach and a lot more work. Frankly, it's much easier to design 5 standalone scenarios and a campaign that ties them together than an entire, meta's worth of cards and balance testing and all of that. Now, maybe that would get easier with repeated experience, but so the novelty of that was a lot of fun for me. And I think it came when I needed it too. Like after being on the game for as long as I had, it was nice to have something really different and fresh to flex my creative muscles and try to push myself. But as much as I am super proud of that and tempted to say that, I think it's got to be Mutant Genesis, just because the X-Men, are my homeboys. That's what I grew up reading. That's what drew me into comics, and the reception to that was also very meaningful. I've heard a lot of people say how much they enjoy that first Mutant wave, and especially they enjoy playing as Wolverine or Cyclops or battling Magneto. And that's all very personal to me. It's a toss-up between those two, but I guess tell you what, if Civil War comes out and I win over all the skeptics and everybody's like, oh my gosh, I was so wrong about PvP, this is actually super fun, that could, give it the boost where it overtakes Mutant
The
Genesis.
vindication of knowing that you had the right idea.
Yeah, vindication.
Or honestly, or if they just say, you know, I never touch PvP, but holy smokes, it's just so much fun to build my own custom decks. And like already it's been great to see the change in tone with the heroes in the box. Because I do recall like when we first did just that brief announcement of like Hulkling and Tigra, and people were like, who? You know,
Yeah.
and a little bit of like, you know, and those were the polite responses. There were some less polite responses.
Yes, there were.
But it was really fun to see then once we got the full articles out there, because Peter Schumacher, he does such a great job
Yeah, he does.
of writing those articles and really explaining why each hero's unique and different. And I really enjoyed watching the response then to people kind of going from, you know, kind of what the heck to, oh my gosh, this looks really fun. You know, that's a great feeling.
Yeah, Peter's really earned his money with this wave because the articles where he's had to break down the entirely new way to play the game, I think have been really informative and easy to follow. So you guys are getting your money's worth out of him, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, and for him, it's a passion project as well. He really loves this game. And so he goes above and beyond to make sure that he's doing exactly what you said.
I mean, you're so proud of Civil War, and I think you should be, and I'm excited to get it into my hands. How does the final version of Civil War that we're all going to play compare to your original idea? Is it very similar? Is there a lot of through lines, or did it change a lot through development?
Yeah, you got a lot of great questions tonight. It's kind of fun to think back and try to remember that, because with most of my products, pretty much anything I've worked on in my career, I usually start with a really strong vision. Like I don't really get into it until I can already see it for what I want it to be. So in the sense of like, if you looked at like kind of a bird's eye view, it didn't change much. Like what it ended up was is very much what I set out to do. But as you start to zoom in to specific things, you'll see things that definitely changed and grew. I'm thinking of specifically the standard PvP set. We knew we needed to have one from the beginning. At least I think we did. It's been a minute now. But the side scheme that starts in play that says you can't do more than so much damage, I'm pretty sure that evolved as we went, where it was like, what's to stop me from just one-shotting the enemy leader? You know, like turn, because you think about how many times like players, they always go first and they take that first turn, and then it's just, I did 16 damage turn one, and now I'm on stage 2 of the villain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, that, you probably shouldn't really be able to do that in fact, there might have been a time where like the leaders went first just for that reason, where you started on the back foot.
Okay.
I think
that.
there was a time where it was like leaders went first, but it just threw people for such a loop. Everyone would like instinctively start playing their turn, and they'd be like, whoa, leaders go first. And they'd be like, I always forget.
Yeah, I could see
so
that.
that was an indication we were moving in the wrong direction. And I think it might have created some other problems too. So I think we just said, no, let's go back to starting players first, but let's put some kind of safety net in place, some kind of roadblocks, so that the leader can't just be KO'd turn one.
That makes sense. I think there's a lot of decks out there that try to do this one-turn kill idea, so that could create undue pressure, make it not fun, which is not the point. What do you want players to know? What's the biggest thing you want players to know as they head into Civil War?
Biggest thing I want them to know? I don't know what I want them to know. That's such an interesting question. Like, I guess things I would want for them would be like, maybe just keep an open mind, give it a try, even if you don't think you're interested at all. I guess to that end, I would want them to know that like, we really designed this box with fun in mind, with the end user in mind. Like, we want you to have a great time. This isn't like a matter of pride or a flex where it's like, well, I just want to do this, so everyone needs to get on board. It's like, we believe in this product. We had some pretty robust conversations internally before this thing was even greenlit to make sure that everybody in the studio believed in this product and believed it was really worthwhile. So yeah, what I want for people is just to have a great time with it. You know, keep an open mind. Like, if you were skeptical of PvP the way you're skeptical of like Tigra or Hulkling, and now you're going, hey, those actually look really fun, maybe PvP will be a real lot of fun for you too. I guess maybe keep in mind too that PvP is not strictly competitive, because it's not just 1v1. You can play 2v2, which is another key point. You know, like, a lot of people, they're like, well, we always play as a group of 4. I go, great, play 2v2, because now you're still playing cooperatively. You still have a teammate to say, hey, I'm going justice. Why don't you go aggression, or coordinate your decks. My guy's really good at defending. Why don't you bring an attacker or a thwarter? So I like 2v2 for the reason that it retains that cooperative element, but still gives you a chance to kind of duke it out with your friends.
I mean, full disclosure, Caleb, you're talking to me. I've been a skeptic on the PvP thing since the beginning because I came to Marvel Champions specifically to not have PvP. I came here for a cooperative experience.
Yeah.
I'm keeping an open mind. I think it all looks really cool. Even if, to me, it's almost like the campaign element of the boxes. I don't play a lot of the campaigns. I like the standalone mode better. But that doesn't, just because it exists, doesn't make my experience with standalone worse. It's just an additional thing I can play sometimes. Yeah, and for me, that's how I go into PvP. Like, I'm excited for all the content and to play that normally and to mix up all the main schemes and design new decks. That looks great. The PvP thing, I don't know. I'll try it. I'm keeping an open mind on it. But, to me, it's not the part that jumps out at me, but I'm still super excited for this.
Cool. I actually really like the way you said that.
I was going to say that that's the mindset I think people just should always have with this kind of stuff is like, same thing with campaigns is a great example of like you kind of said, it was the intent. If you go into it like hating this whole thing because you don't like PvP, you can just pretend it doesn't exist, and it's still a good campaign box. It's still a cool box with 16 encounter sets. I think you said that's so many. That's more than we ever get. So really, this is just a huge campaign box with upside.
Yeah, so what you both said there that I really like is, you can view the PvP mode as sort of the campaign for this box. That is actually how we talked about it internally, was that here are 4 new scenarios with a ton of customization, similar to like you were saying, a regular box, like here's 5 different scenarios that you can play, and if you want to, here's this extra thing you can add to try and make it different with campaign. And I feel the same way. Like, here's 4 really interesting, unique scenarios and a ton of mod sets. And oh, by the way, if you want to, here's this other thing that might be the icing on the cake for some people, or might just get left off.
Yeah. Okay. So not last question, but another question on Civil War before we shift to something else. I think, is there anything that you've designed in your experience, kind of looking back on all of Marvel Champions, that you think is particularly underrated or undervalued by the community?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. I'm trying to think of it. Everything I've worked on at this point. It's quite
been
a
lot. Yeah.
Right. Like, I know Wrecking Crew is not like a super popular scenario, but I don't know that it's necessarily underrated. I think we learned a valuable lesson with that one. We learned how much customizing mod sets means to people, because we designed that scenario before the game was even available in stores. So we didn't have a lot of feedback yet. We didn't realize how much customization meant to people. So I wouldn't call that underrated. I would just say that's maybe one of my less popular products. Underrated, though, is something that I think is really good and people don't necessarily appreciate as much. I don't know. It's hard to say. I feel like our audience is so broad that everybody kind of likes everything somewhere along the way. Different people like other stuff more than others, but I feel like everything's kind of found a home.
I actually like Wrecking Crew. I'm a bit of a Wrecking Crew apologist. I think it does need some tweaks, and over the years I've kind of messed with it and gone back to it because it's the one I don't play that often. It does lack some of that modularity, but I've gone back and mixed in some additional mod sets that I've been happy with to kind of create each of them have their own identity. So I'll pick like a mod set that's very side scheme heavy and give it to one of them, and pick a mod set that's very like attachment heavy and give it to another one, or one that's very minion heavy, so they each kind of have their own personality and you can kind of mix it up. I found that makes it a little more dynamic for me, but I think the Wrecking Crew's fun. So
I like that approach. I thought about that too, of like, why not just go back and add stuff in if you want? Like, you don't need our permission to do it,
Yeah, the FFG police not going to
I like that kind of stuff. And I also think that I know it's like kind of a core principle of the entire game, but how much mod sets really change the game always surprises me. I'm always like, because there's some villains that just aren't as difficult, like, I don't know, Rhino or whatever. Rhino's one of the first scenarios, very hard to balance for a game that doesn't exist. So just kind of came out swinging. But with just a couple tweaks, we often play with the Return to Rhino custom set people made, or even just with some of the more modern like throw a Thunderbolt or two in there, and suddenly it's significantly harder. The boost icons go up by a lot. Suddenly Rhino's hitting for 6, 7, 9, and even Rhino sometimes, and also he only got one scheme. Sometimes you just throw it out. So I'm always impressed by just how much adding like 20 cards changes the whole game.
Mm-hmm. Well, having worked at FFG on LCGs for so long, what's it been like to move to a new product line and kind of leave the LCG model behind you?
It's been refreshing, I guess. I would never try to like cast shadow on my time working on LCGs because that was 13 great years and a lot of fun. I was very fortunate to work on Lord of the Rings and Marvel, which are like two of my favorite properties of all time. I love those worlds, and it was always great to work in them. Now this is a bit of a stretch maybe to make this comparison, but like, you know, I grew up watching the X-Files, you know, like I was in college at like when it was at its peak, right? Like I remember going to see the movie in the theater. It was like this cultural event. And so I remember being shocked when David Duchovny decided to like leave the show, right? No more Fox Mulder. And you're like, why would you walk away from like such an iconic character and they're paying you so much money and yeah, everybody loves it. And I remember him saying like, you know, 7 years, I'm ready to do something different. And I couldn't fathom that at that age because, you know, I was barely an adult at that time. I hadn't done anything that long. But after 13 years on LCGs, I kind of started to understand. I was like, yeah, it's not because I don't like it. I'm just ready to do something different, you know? So it's been fun. Just, it's like, it's energizing in a way of like, okay, I know how to do these. And you start to wonder, is this all I know how to do? Like, you know, would I find success doing anything else besides this very niche kind of product that I've been doing? Yeah, so it's just been cool to be like, okay, I'm more than just an LCG card game designer. Like I can do other stuff now too.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine
so
the pace is different, right? Like you don't have the same release schedule, but like what are some other things that are really different in that experience of developing a non-LCG game?
You know, everything in life is a double-edged sword. Everything's got its strengths and weaknesses, its pros and cons. One of the pros of working on the LCGs that you kind of you take the good with the bad, right? You know, like the schedule can be pretty daunting. It's a pretty aggressive release schedule. You guys know it's like we're constantly announcing new products and putting out packs all the time, and that's a lot of work on the back end. But what comes with that is like sitting down with you guys and talking about getting your excitement, you know, kind of comes back to us, and that's cool. And just seeing like the day a news article goes up announcing a new product, and then, you know, there's gonna be like a half dozen videos by the end of the week of people reacting to it, and, you know, forums are gonna blow up with comments, and that's fun to get that feedback and to get that excitement. You know, transitioning over to the board game side of the studio, you know, the release cadence is much slower, you know, which means in general, you got a little more time to breathe on the development side. That's great. It's nice to feel like, okay, if this doesn't work the first try, I've got time to try something totally different, reiterate. But at the same time, there's not as much, you know, hoopla about it, you know, like not as many people commenting like, did you see the new announcement? So I think at this point in my life, though, I'm like, I'm okay. I don't need all the attention so much or need the affirmation as much. I'm feeling pretty good about myself these days. And so it's, wow, I sound really like I got an ego. Like I'm such hot stuff. I don't need anyone else to tell me. I look in the mirror and tell myself every day.
So I think you are underselling yourself a little bit. I think you'd have a half dozen videos about a release article by the end of the hour. I don't think it'll take all week.
People love your stuff. I mean,
I'm just laughing because I don't know if I've ever been accused of underselling myself, you know, like just a raging egomaniac over here.
No, that's not true at all.
The stuff we've cut out is crazy.
Yeah, right. Thank you for that.
Some of the stuff we had to edit out.
Yeah, woof. This he sounds all nice to you guys, but woof.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, in our last interview, we had you on and you talked that you've basically done the holy trinity of nerd IPs, right? Star Wars, Marvel, and Lord of the Rings. So now you're on the Star Wars deck building game. How has being a designer of Marvel Champions or more broadly on LCGs kind of informed how you design for the deck building game and for other kinds of products?
Yeah, you got all the right questions today, man.
Flattery
that's
will get you
something-
invited back. So keep it
Okay.
going.
This guy knows.
Awesome. You guys can expand your channel to include my deck building game. I'm here for it.
Let's go.
So that is something I think about a lot, actually. And I may have mentioned this in other interviews because I almost see the trajectory of my career in terms of complexity on this like downward axis. I hope that the quality of my content is on an upward axis, but like the complexity I see is coming down because Lord of the Rings is the most complicated game that I've worked on out of all three that you've mentioned. And I don't say complicated as a bad thing because I like complicated. I like involved. You know, like we were talking about Twilight Imperium, man, I love that stuff. But it is harder to teach. It's harder to get novice players to give it a try.
Mhm.
My wife literally fell asleep when I was trying to show her the game. And it was her idea. She says, no, this is what you're working on. I want you to teach me. And I was like, I'm not sure it's your kind of game. She said, no, tell me. And so I'm like, okay, these are your heroes. You collect resources. She's like, yeah, okay. I mean, legit just out. She woke up like a half hour later. She's like, where'd you go? Where's the stuff?
Oh, man.
So it is like, you know, one of those things of like, it's not for everyone. And I wouldn't change a thing about that game because I had so much fun with it. But when we went to Marvel Champions, we were really like, okay, I think our audience here is going to be a little younger. Like Lord of the Rings definitely appeals to people in general. Like if you're reading the books that our game is based off of, you know, the Venn diagram of like gamers and Lord of the Rings book readers, you know, I think it skews a little older, a little wiser. And then Marvel Champions, comic books and gamers. At that point, I think we did something very right by saying we're aiming at a different audience and they don't necessarily want to be challenged to figure out how do we ever defeat this person. They probably more want to be like, hey, watch this, you know,
Yes.
watch what I can do. And one word that we kept repeating was empowerment. You know, you're playing as a superhero with superpowers. You want to be empowered. I was so blown away with how much that resonated and continues to resonate. People love feeling powerful. And so I definitely took that to the deck building game where like Lord of the Rings, my default answer to a lot of stuff was no. I'd be like, can I do this? No. You know, like trying to keep the game hard.
Yeah.
And with
works.
Champions, the default answer was more like, yes. They're like, can I really do this? Yeah. But really? Yes. I'm like, oh, that's great. And so I took that, I feel like all the way kind of to its, I don't know if natural conclusion's quite right, because I don't think I'm done, but it brought that kind of sensibility to Star Wars of, again, Star Wars is such a popular and well-beloved IP, and it definitely appeals to young and old alike. So I wanted it to be a game where like real gamers have something to sink their teeth into with like the different card combinations, but anybody can learn to pick up and play this game within minutes. So that was really the goal. I think Marvel Champions is pretty easy to teach. Our mission was not a kid's game, but a game you can play with your kids. But I think it definitely takes an adult sitting at the table to explain, okay, here's what you do and here's how this works. Whereas with Star Wars, I really wanted it to just be lowest bar of entry possible. And I've heard many times now since the game came out that one of the things people like best about it in the FFG catalog is it's like the gateway game. It's the entry game, you know, get your foot in the door with this. Hey, check this out. It's really easy to play. It's very instinctive. And then, oh, by the way, the FFG makes this. Like, what else do they do? And, you know, and as people gain experience and gain confidence, they go, maybe I want to sink my teeth into something just a little more complex. Maybe I'll try Marvel Champions or Arkham Horror or, you know, any number of other great games. Yeah, it's definitely something that I was like, I want people to feel empowered, and I don't want them to ever get frustrated trying to figure out how stuff works. Like my goal is to never have to do an FAQ, you know, like that's really a thing. Like people have talked about it.
Yeah.
Like I was just reading the card explains the card is kind of the goal, right?
Yeah. I think it's definitely the most approachable of the three by far. I have both of the deck building games. I enjoy them. I think they're just, it's easier for me to teach someone who doesn't play a lot of games how to pick up and play it. It's not as intimidating. I think it can be intimidating to think of like, here's this LCG and there are like maybe not literally, but almost infinite combinations of like this card and this card. You have to know all these cards. Whereas a deck building game, it's like you just are, the cards are going to come off the deck and those are the ones you're going to play. You don't have to know all these combinations and build a deck in advance. You can just kind of sit down, shuffle it up, and start playing.
Yeah.
I liked your analogy a lot about the no to the yes, and I thought very astute of you to mention that you have a different audience in mind. And I think that definitely comes out in the game, right? There's a lot of times, I'm a big LOTR, LCG fan as well. There's a lot of times I'm playing that game and I think like, I should just scoop. Like this is hopeless. Like there's no way that I'm going to get this in time. Like there's no way I'm going to defeat these minions. Like I just shuffle up and try again with a new deck. I don't always do that, but that's like the sense that I have is like, there's no way we're going to get the Ring to Mordor. Like this is stupid. There's no way we should even try. This is impossible. But somehow you do. Whereas with Marvel Champions, it's like, I'm going to smack around, I don't know, whoever today, Claw. Anybody can have it. We're just going to build a deck and I'm going to slap someone around and have a great time. It's just a much different experience.
That's great. No, it's great to hear because that was the goal.
Okay, so we've talked about the Star Wars deck building game. There is something coming up soon that I think has been teased or slightly revealed or fully revealed by Fantasy Flight Games. So I'd love to hear more about that. It's an upcoming expansion. So what can you tell us?
Yeah, we just recently announced the first like true expansion for the game, right? It's called the Mandalorian. It's a new type of product called a faction pack. So for anyone who maybe doesn't know all about Star Wars the deck building game, the first edition came out in 2023, had Luke and Vader on the cover and covered, a lot of the stuff from the original trilogy. And then the reception was so strong before it even got to the store shelves. Like our partners were clamoring for more. They're like, this is great. Can we get expansions? So they actually like greenlit the Clone Wars edition before the first edition even made it to the stores. And that was kind of a no-brainer, right? It was like, well, if people love playing Rebels versus Empire so much, then they'll probably enjoy, playing the Republic versus the Separatists. And then as an added bonus, you can mix and match these factions, right? Kind of plug and play. Just if I can dream, what would it be like if the Rebels took on the Separatists, and you just take some cards out, put some other cards in, and there you go. But, the Clone Wars is what we call like a standalone expansion, right? Where you didn't need the first edition to play. The Mandalorian pack, however, you need at least one of those editions, whether it's Clone Wars or the original, because what it is it's just one faction this time. And it's very much intended to be plug and play. So like, I'm a fan of the series. Obviously that's kind of what inspired it. I actually designed the Mandalorian faction, I think before we knew the game was ever going to be a line. Like it was one of these things where I'm like just watching Mando season 3 and I'm really digging it. And I've watched everything to this point. And I think like this happens a lot at my house. Like, my kids' room's right across the hall and I tuck them into bed and I kind of sit at my desk and leave the door open to listen to make sure they're not getting out of bed and goofing around, And so I'll end up just like working, I'll just sit down and I'll start brainstorming, but it's kind of my time to do what I want and be creative. And so one day I was like, hey, I'm really enjoying this Mandalorian show. Like, I wonder what a Mando faction would look like. How would they be different from the other factions? There's kind of a rule for like who can be a faction in this game. And one of the most difficult things is they have to have a fleet of ships. That's such a key component of the game is you protect your base with your capital ships. And I was like, the Mandalorians don't really have much of a fleet. The fleet that they do have in the show stole from the Empire, and then I was like, but that's it. That could be their gimmick. They can steal ships. Now, not from your opponent, because that would be a negative play experience. That would not be empowering if I play a ship in front of my base and then you steal it. That's something I really try to avoid in this game, where I don't want anything to feel cheap or like, hey, I paid for that and now you got it, So instead they steal them out of the row. I haven't bought it yet. That's already baked into the DNA of the game with bounty hunting and sabotage. The stuff in the row is not safe. And so the Mandos are like the first faction to be like, hey, I'm going to set this jetpack trooper up. He's going to fly up to the row and capture that ship for me. And so that's really fun. Like when you're the Mandalorians and you capture like an Empire ship and then you get to play it in front of your base.
That's
You're
awesome.
Like,
That's really cool. I mean, I have I have one big question there then. Are there plans? I know you can't talk about unannounced products, but are there then plans to further expand this line based off of this first expansion?
So yeah, I can't reveal like any details or specifics. What I can say is that I am full time on Star Wars the deck building game now. There is definitely more product, and not just more product. There is a line plan. So like when I first started working on Marvel Champions, there was a directive to, say, hey, let's come up with a line plan. Like, Caleb, show us what the first 4 or 5 years of Marvel Champions looks like if you could pitch your ideal. So I drew up a plan, and Civil War was really kind of like the last thing on my bucket list. Like, that was all the Avengers, Guardians, Spider-Man, X-Men, X-Force, all that stuff. Most of that stuff was like on the plan. And so there is a plan for Star Wars the deck building game. It is robust, and it's exciting, and I get a little impatient because I want it all now, but I'm grateful that the company isn't telling me to do it all now, because I couldn't.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's amazing how much when I drafted that plan, I was like, well, that's already done, and that's already conceived. Like, I got a proof of concept for that. Like, so much of what was in my plan was like, hey, if you want to play it, it's ready. We can go right now, because I got to put my kids to bed every night, and I need something to do while I'm waiting. So I got a lot of stuff.
No,
I'm just excited to share with the world.
I love that. I love that. And this is not a Star Wars deck building game podcast, so I'll limit how much we talk about that. But I do also want to mention that not only is it just a faction like pack, it introduces a new way to play the game.
Yeah.
So people who, much like Civil War, right, we're introducing kind of a new way to play it. So people who are familiar, at least somewhat, with the Star Wars deck building game, like, what does this introduce in terms of gameplay as a wrinkle?
Yeah, we have a new game mode, 3-player mode, which is something you couldn't do prior to this. Prior to this, you could play 1v1 or you could play 2v2. But, we would get these comments like, hey, that's all well and good, but there's usually like 3 of us, and it stinks for the one guy who doesn't want to watch. And that's actually a little bit of credit goes to Nate French I was pitching him the Mando pack idea at the time, kind of before we restructured as a company. He was executive game designer. And he said, hey, this looks great. He goes, if you're introducing this sort of third faction, does that mean we could play 3-player? And I was sort of like, I hadn't really gotten that far yet, but yeah, let me see what I can do. Because for me personally, when I design something, I want it to feel like it was always part of the plan. It should just fit naturally into the game. I don't want any square peg trying to mash it into a round hole where it's just like really awkward of like, yeah, this technically works, but it's not, smooth. So, what I told him is that if I can find a way that just feels natural, that feels right, then yeah. And it really just took less than a week. Like, it was like a week later we were like playing this. Then that's usually a good sign that it just kind of clicks right away. And yeah, it's a Champions podcast, so I won't get into all the whole backstory of that. But basically, I'll suffice to say that once we introduced 3-player, a bunch of my testers and friends were like, this is my favorite way to play now. Like,
that's
this
awesome.
This is top draw. If we can get 3 people together, this is what we're doing.
Okay, well, now
so
I'm
that
even
was
more
really
excited.
encouraging.
I love Star Wars deck building game. I'm hyped for 3-player.
Yeah, it's a really fun
Thank you.
game. When is it releasing? Do you have those details? Do you know the expansion?
I don't remember if
I don't remember if the article said so, so maybe you can't.
I believe
say
it's
it.
sometime in November. Like, it's before this, before the year is out for sure.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to that for sure. I hope there's a Grogu.
Yeah, that was like
I think
on
that
the
was
packaging.
I think that was on the packaging. Yeah,
I mean,
otherwise
of
my
course
wife
there's
won't
going to
play
be
it.
a Grogu,
come on.
right? Like, it's the Mandalorian.
There's a new movie that is announced, and I saw a trailer for it, Mandalorian and Grogu.
Yeah, trailer went up today.
Yeah, I just saw. So now viewers who are smart know when we recorded this versus when it posts. But
so it's a little mini game for you listeners.
Yeah, you can figure it out.
When did we record
Comment
this?
down below. But I did just see the trailer, and it looks good. No, so anything else before we sign off you kind of want us to know about Star Wars deck building game or about Civil War or any other parting thoughts you have?
Not really. Just I really appreciate everybody who enjoys the games and takes a little time out to let me know. That means a lot. I think it's kind of wild. Like, again, if people want to like guess the date, in 4 days I'm going to be celebrating my 14th anniversary at Fantasy Flight Games. Yeah, and it's just, the truth is, it's just flown by. That's what's so wild to me. I love that this is how I get to support my family, because that's something I think kind of gets lost in a lot of the talk. Is like, this is more than just a passion project to me. Like this is my livelihood. This is how I feed my family. And so I'm always grateful just to be able to do that, right? Like if you can provide for your family, you're doing 90% of what you need to do as a husband and a father. But when it has such an impact where people are getting so much joy from it that they feel compelled to write me and let me know or invite me to come talk as you guys have, like that's just so much extra that I really appreciate. Like I can't really describe how much that means. It's a big deal to me.
That's awesome. I was telling my wife that we were recording with you, and last time we recorded with you, she said, "Isn't it odd that imagine you're at work every day, and some random person emails you and says like, will you spend an hour after work talking about work with me?" Most people will be like, "Oh my goodness, no! Like, I don't want to talk about my TPS reports." To someone who's like geeking out about it and thinks it's great.
Did
but
you
it's
get
awesome.
the memo?
Yeah. So you got the reference, but you work in one of those career fields where it's awesome, right? You are doing something that people are getting joy out of. Not everybody can say that, so I think that's pretty cool.
It's very cool. So yeah, you asked me if there's anything I'd want to say. It would just be to express gratitude.
Awesome. Well, then, last thing before we go, since you have transitioned now to being just a fan of Marvel Champions and no longer a designer, I will say that you are attending as a fan the MCDC, the convention that's coming up very shortly after this goes up. I think it's about a week after this goes up, we'll be playing. So we look forward to playing with you. Have you given any thought to what heroes or decks you're going to bring with you to play?
I have.
Okay. Can
I
we
want to
hear
keep
about
it a
it?
surprise.
Okay.
Because
Fair.
I don't, I'm a truly competitive person and I don't want to tip my hand and I don't want people teching against me.
Fair.
The truth is I will probably build several decks.
Okay.
You were at the last Con of Heroes. We had a chance to sit and play.
Yeah, we played a game.
And I played my Adam Warlock deck.
You
that
did?
was just
I was
going to
say over under on Adam Warlock being there because I remember that specifically.
He might come.
I don't know that that's a very good competitive deck.
Okay.
When it's like I was looking at what other people were doing, and I really just wanted to, what it was is people were having a good laugh about my obsession with capes, and I was like, well, then I need to build a hero with a cape, and I hadn't played Adam Warlock in so long that I thought that'll be fun. I just want to splash all these best cards and see what I can do, and it was a fun deck, but it took a while to get going, which is why I don't know that it would make a great competitive deck. But I think I remember telling you at the time that's the first time I ever built a custom deck for the game.
Yeah.
Because I've always been so busy working on the pre-cons, trying to make sure that those are a good experience that, I never built a custom deck before. So I'm excited to build a few, custom decks to bring out and try.
Again, maybe not fair to you to say that you've never built a custom deck when some of us would argue that you've built
all of them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thanks. I think that's fair. You're talking about competitive decks. That leads me to believe that maybe you're looking to get some PvP games in. You're looking to throw down.
I will probably be exclusively playing PvP.
Oh, he's looking to throw down. Okay.
It'll be like if you want to play with me, try PvP.
We're not playing with Caleb. We're playing against him at the con.
Yeah.
Well, 2v2 also. I think that could be fun too. And then will you sign my Vision hero card?
Yeah, of course.
All right. I love it. My favorite hero by the designer. Yeah. Then he didn't live up to his word. Yeah, no, I'm super excited. So you're going to be there, again, just as a fan, as a player. So I'm excited to see the decks that you bring. Do you build your own decks or do you reference Marvel CDB ever at all? Or are you just all by yourself?
Not for Champions.
Okay.
I used to play CCGs competitively back in the day, like Star Trek 2nd Edition especially. And it was, for me, what I really liked was building my own decks and surprising my opponents with stuff they hadn't ever seen before. I was really into that game. So I used to read all the forums and basically follow the meta to see what people were expecting and then just go the other way. Just go.
That.
People would be like, this kind of deck just doesn't work anymore. And so they wouldn't be ready to see it when I brought it. And I'd usually make
sneaky wins.
Yeah, I'd just do it different from how other people were doing it too. For whatever reason, that game in particular clicked with me. But so I've never really net decked until Star Wars Unlimited. I love to play, but I don't have time to follow that game. I'm too busy with other stuff. So that's the first time where I've ever just gone and said, you know, I don't have time to discover the meta and you know, find the diamond in the rough. Let's just go online and see what's working.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But champions, I have the knowledge. Like, I know the card pool pretty well.
I should think
Yeah.
so.
I would hope so.
Yeah. All right. Well, we look forward to seeing you at MCDC, Caleb, and playing games. I hope we can get a game in.
Yeah.
I know everyone's going to be excited to shake your hand and tell you how awesome this product is. So that will help your ego for sure.
Right.
No one will fall asleep during the rules teach.
You guys have to keep me in check then.
Yeah. We'll keep you humble.
We can't cut it over there, so you gotta police yourself.
Yeah. No editing there. So, all right. Well, again, thanks so much, Caleb, for coming on and talking Marvel Champions. And thank you so much for creating the game and putting the passion and love and care into this thing that I spend my evenings talking to you about and we all enjoy so much. It's a great game. It's just, I can't say enough good stuff. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for listening. If you have questions for Caleb, put them in the comments. He will not respond, but it will help us in the algorithm. So thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Later.